The Exile. The Galactic Council chamber's circular dome glittered with the light of 1,000 stars, its transparent ceiling revealing the vastness of space above. Commander Ilara Voss stood at attention before the semicircular arrangement of alien representatives, her naval uniform crisp and unwrinkled despite the 12-hour journey from Earth's orbital command. "The vote is unanimous," announced High Arbiter Kex Traal, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence as his crystalline exoskeleton refracted the starlight. "Human warships are hereby restricted from all galactic territories outside your solar system, effective immediately. The Council has spoken." Ilara's jaw tightened, but her voice remained steady. "With respect, Arbiter, the UES Thunderchild defended a civilian science outpost against an unprovoked Skoro attack. We lost 17 civilian researchers." Ambassador Lorne of the Skoro Confederacy rose from his seat, tendrils writhing in agitation. "The Thunderchild obliterated 3 of our battle cruisers with a single gravitational pulse weapon, ships that have stood against the might of the Drulk Armada. And your vessel's shields weren't even depleted." "Perhaps," Ilara replied coolly. "Your battle cruisers shouldn't have been firing upon unarmed scientists." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The High Arbiter's crystalline form pulsed with blue light, a sign of agitation, Ilara had learned. "The manner of your victory is precisely the issue, Commander," said Kex Traal. "Human warships employ technologies that follow unexpected development paths. Your gravitational manipulation systems alone violate 3 separate weapons conventions. Conventions established thousands of years before humanity achieved spaceflight," Ilara countered. "We weren't consulted. We weren't signatories. Yet you benefit from Galactic Council trade routes, scientific exchanges, and diplomatic protections," hissed Ambassador Lorne. A softer voice entered the conversation. Diplomatic liaison Nira Talani, the Ashari representative who had been humanity's first alien contact 50 years ago. "Commander Voss, surely you understand the Council's concern. The Thunderchild is a mid-range patrol vessel in your fleet, correct? Not even a capital ship." Ilara nodded once. "And yet it defeated 3 Skoro heavy cruisers while sustaining minimal damage," Nira continued. "The galactic community has maintained a delicate balance of power for millennia. Human warship technology threatens that balance." Ilara's patience thinned. "So we're to be punished for defending ourselves effectively, for prioritizing crew survival and operational efficiency." "You are to be restricted," corrected High Arbiter Kex Traal, "until your vessels can be retrofitted with standardized weapons and defensive systems that align with galactic conventions. And in the meantime," Ilara pressed, "who will protect our outer colonies? The scientific outposts? The mining operations? 23 human settlements lie beyond Sol. The Council will establish a protection rotation," Nira offered placatingly. "Various member species will provide security for human interests beyond Sol. The same members who voted unanimously to restrict our ships?" Ilara asked, her voice dangerously quiet. The silence in the chamber was deafening. "You have 30 standard days to recall all vessels to your home system," High Arbiter Kex Traal declared, officially closing the matter. Admiral Chenwei's office aboard Orbital Command offered a panoramic view of Earth below, blue and serene against the blackness of space. His weathered face looked even more lined than when Ilara had departed for the Council hearing 2 weeks ago. "They're afraid," he said simply, replaying the Council session recording, "and fear makes for poor policy." Ilara remained standing, hands clasped behind her back. "The recall is 60% complete. We're prioritizing vessels from the outer territories first, bringing them inward in stages." Chen nodded. "And what's your assessment of the Council's protection rotation?" "Inadequate," Ilara said without hesitation. "The Centauri Research Station has already reported Skoro vessels performing security sweeps that look suspiciously like intelligence gathering. The Procyon mining colony had protection withdrawn for 12 hours during a shift change." "It's as we expected then." Chen sighed heavily. "They're using this restriction to gain access to our technology, our resources. The Skoro never forgave us for the Tav City incident. Sir, the Tav City colonists would have been massacred if the Intrepid hadn't intervened. I know, Commander. I signed the deployment order. Chen swiveled in his chair, looking out at Earth. We developed in isolation for too long. While the rest of the galaxy was bound by treaties and conventions, humanity was solving problems differently, more effectively, Ilara added. Perhaps. Chen turned back to her. But we're part of a larger community now. We must consider the political ramifications of our technologies. A soft chime interrupted them. Chen's holographic display flickered to life, showing a red alert from Proxima Centauri. Distress signal from New Jakarta colony, reported the communications officer. Multiple unidentified vessels have appeared in system. They're not responding to hails and are on an intercept course with the colony. Ilara and Chen exchanged glances. The nearest Council protection vessel? Chen asked. The Asheri cruiser Luminous Harmony. ETA is 7 hours. The colony will be ash by then, Ilara said quietly. Chen's fingers drummed on his desk. The Valiant is still in the Proxima system, correct? Preparing for recall. Yes, Admiral. Captain Rice reports ready for departure within the hour. A long moment of silence stretched between them. Sir, Ilara finally said, the Council restriction is now legally in effect. Chen nodded slowly. It is, and I have sworn to uphold United Earth regulations, including our treaty obligations. He looked directly at Ilara. The Valiant is experiencing communication difficulties. The recall order appears not to have reached Captain Rice. Most unfortunate. Ilara's expression remained neutral. Very unfortunate, sir. I estimate it will take at least 12 hours to re-establish communications, by which time the Valiant will have already responded to the distress call, as is standard protocol when communications with command are disrupted. Chen's gaze was steely. Once communications are restored, Captain Rice will, of course, comply with the recall order immediately. Of course, Admiral. Commander Voss, I'm assigning you to personally deliver the recall order to the Valiant once communications are restored. Take a fast courier. I want our best diplomat on site to explain this misunderstanding to any Council representatives who might take issue with the timing. Yes, Admiral. As Ilara turned to leave, Chen added, and Commander, the Valiant's sensor logs and combat recordings should be thoroughly analyzed. For compliance purposes only, of course. Of course, sir. The Valiant hung in space above New Jakarta colony, its sleek hull bearing scorch marks and minor impact damage. Battle scars from the engagement that had concluded 3 hours earlier. Through the viewport of her approaching courier vessel, Ilara could see debris scattered across the colony's orbital path, remnants of ships unlike any in the Council registry. Captain Rice met her in the Valiant's hangar deck, his uniform similarly battle-worn. Commander Voss, your timing is impeccable. Communications have just been restored. Convenient, Ilara remarked dryly as they walked toward the bridge. What happened here, Captain? Unknown hostiles. 7 vessels of identical configuration. They ignored hails and opened fire on the colony's orbital station without warning. Rice handed her a datapad. We engaged as per standing orders to protect human settlements. Ilara reviewed the combat data as they walked. These energy signatures, they don't match any known species. No, they don't. And their whole composition contained elements not found on the periodic table. At least, not our version of it. They reached the bridge, where the main display showed the colony below. Repair drones swarmed around the damaged orbital station. Casualties? Ilara asked. 22 station personnel. Would have been all 300 if we hadn't intercepted. Rice gestured to another display showing the recovered debris. We'd managed to capture their communications during the battle. Linguistics is still working on it, but the preliminary translation is concerning. He activated the audio. A harsh, clicking language played through the speakers, followed by the computer's halting translation. Harvest. Proceed. Biological material. Suitable. Continue to next coordinates. Ilara's blood ran cold. They were harvesting the colonists. That's our interpretation, Rice confirmed, and they referred to next coordinates. This wasn't an isolated incident, Commander. This was part of a planned operation. Before Ilara could respond, the communications officer called out, "Captain, incoming transmission from the Ashari vessel Luminous Harmony. They're demanding an explanation for our presence in this system." Rise looked to Ilara. It seems the Council's protection has finally arrived. 7 hours late. Ilara straightened her uniform. "I'll handle this. And Captain, the Admiral sends his regards and expects your immediate compliance with the recall order, now that you've received it." Reyes nodded, understanding the game. "Of course, Commander. The Valiant stands ready to return to Sol immediately, after we've been properly relieved of our protective duties here." As Ilara prepared to speak with the Ashari commander, she couldn't shake the feeling that the galaxy had just become significantly more dangerous, and humanity had just been ordered to stand down its most effective defense. The Reckoning. 5 years passed with painful slowness. Commander Ilara Voss, now Admiral Voss, stood on the observation deck of Titan Naval Station, watching as construction drones swarmed around the massive frame of the UES Defiant. The ship would be the newest addition to humanity's home defense fleet, technically complying with the Galactic Council's restriction, while incorporating 5 years of advancement in propulsion, weapons, and defensive systems. Advancements made in secret. Quite a sight, isn't she? Ilara turned to find Admiral Chen, now sporting more gray hair than black, hobbling toward her with a cane, an injury from the Proxima conflict 2 years prior, when the mysterious harvesters had returned in force. "She'll be ready for trials next month," Ilara replied. "Just in time." Chen nodded grimly. The intelligence reports had been clear and terrifying. The harvester incursions along the galactic rim had increased exponentially. 23 Council worlds had gone dark in the past year alone. The Skoro Confederacy had lost its most populous colony just 3 months ago. "The Council session begins in 6 hours, Chen said. "The emergency vote on rescinding the restriction. Are you prepared?" Ilara's smile held no warmth. "I've had 5 years to prepare my remarks, Admiral." "Don't gloat, Ilara. Not openly, at least." Chen gazed at the Defiant. "We need them to ask for our help, to request it formally. And if they don't..." Chen's eyes hardened. "Then we'll watch from Sol as the galaxy burns and prepare to face the harvesters alone when they inevitably reach us." Ilara shook her head. "We won't do that." "No," Chen agreed quietly. "We won't, but let's hope it doesn't come to that." The Galactic Council chamber had changed. The once transparent dome was now reinforced with energy shielding that gave the starfield above an ominous blue tint. Many of the delegates' seats stood empty, representatives of worlds that had fallen to the harvesters or who were too busy defending their territories to attend diplomatic functions. High Arbiter Kextral's crystalline form had dulled over the years, losing its lustrous shine. "This emergency session of the Galactic Council is now in session," he announced, his voice lacking its former resonance. "We face an existential threat unprecedented in the Council's history. The entities we have designated harvesters have now claimed 29 member worlds and countless outposts." Ilara stood before them once again, older and wiser, the weight of 5 years of frustrated preparation evident in her stance. "The Council has called Admiral Voss of Earth to present humanity's assessment of the current crisis," Kextral continued. "Admiral, you have the floor." Ilara activated her datapad, and holographic displays appeared before each delegate, showing the spread of harvester activity across the galaxy. "The pattern is clear," she began without preamble. "The harvesters are methodically working through populated systems, taking biological samples from each species they encounter. They're cataloging us, studying us. For what purpose, we can only speculate, but their methods are consistent. They leave no survivors. Ambassador Lorne of the Scoro, once proud and aggressive, now appeared diminished. We have lost 3 home systems. Our fleet is scattered. The Harvester's technology exceeds our own in ways we cannot counter. Their shield frequencies adapt too quickly, added the Tellarite representative. Our weapons become ineffective within minutes of engagement. And their hulls, the Ashari diplomat Nira Tilani said softly, they absorb energy weaponry, growing stronger with each hit. Ilara let the desperate reports wash over her before responding. 5 years ago, this council restricted human warships because they were deemed too powerful, too unconventional. The protocols and technologies we developed violated conventions established thousands of years before we achieved spaceflight. She paused, letting her words sink in. Conventions, she continued, that the Harvesters clearly never signed either. High Arbiter Kextral's crystalline form pulsed with acknowledgement. Your point is made, Admiral Voss. The Council has reconvened to discuss rescinding the restriction on human warships in light of the current crisis. With respect, Arbiter, Ilara replied, humanity is not interested in simply having restrictions lifted so we can join you in defeat. We're offering an alternative. She activated another holographic display, showing the UES Defiant. For 5 years, we've continued developing our technology within Sol. We've studied the Harvester debris recovered from New Jakarta and subsequent encounters. We've prepared. The chamber fell silent as the delegates studied the specifications of the Defiant and its sister ships. These vessels, Nira Tilani finally said, they're significantly more advanced than the human ships we restricted 5 years ago. Yes, Ilara acknowledged, they are. Because we had time. Time to design, build, and test while the Council's protection forces failed colony after colony. Ambassador Lorne bristled. You developed these weapons while your own colonies burned. Every human colony was evacuated in the first year after we recognized the true threat. Ilara countered. We prioritized lives over territory. And we used the time to develop solutions, not just for humanity, but potentially for all Council species. High Arbiter Kextral leaned forward. What exactly are you proposing, Admiral Voss? A joint operation. Human warships, unrestricted by conventional limitations, with Council observers and technical liaisons aboard. We believe we've developed countermeasures against Harvester technology. We're prepared to deploy immediately to the Arcturus system, where our intelligence suggests the Harvesters will strike next. Murmurs spread through the chamber as the delegates conferred. Finally, Kextral spoke again. The Council will recess for 1 hour to consider Earth's proposal. Ilara stood on the bridge of the Defiant, surveying her crew. A mixture of Earth's finest officers and technical liaisons from 7 Council species. Ambassador Nira Tilani stood beside her, officially serving as the Council's primary observer. They're arriving exactly as your intelligence predicted, Nira said quietly, watching the tactical display as 9 Harvester vessels emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Arcturus system. How did you know? Pattern recognition, Ilara replied. Their harvest routes follow mathematical progressions. Once we had enough data points, their next targets became predictable. The tactical officer called out, Harvester vessels have detected us. They're altering course to intercept. All hands to battle stations, Ilara ordered calmly. Initiate Defense Protocol Sierra 9. Throughout the ship, specialized systems hummed to life. Technologies developed specifically to counter the Harvester's adaptive capabilities. Admiral, Nira said hesitantly, the Council appreciates your willingness to demonstrate your capabilities, but we have 4 additional defense vessels en route, who won't arrive for another 6 hours, Ilara finished, by which time Arcturus colony would be ash. No, Ambassador, this ends today. The Harvester vessels accelerated toward them, their configurations identical to those Ilara had encountered 5 years earlier at New Jakarta. They're charging weapons, reported the tactical officer. Hold position, Ilara commanded. Let them come to us. Nira looked alarmed. Admiral, Their combined firepower is substantial, yes. Ilara's eyes never left the tactical display. Chief Engineer, status of the phase shift generators. Ready, Admiral. Frequencies are cycling as programmed. Weapons systems. Gravitic disruptors at full capacity. Temporal warheads armed and ready. The harvesters opened fire. Brilliant beams of energy lanced toward the Defiant. Now, Ilara ordered. The Defiant's hull shimmered, and the harvester beams passed harmlessly through it, continuing into empty space. Phase shift successful, reported the defensive systems officer. Their weapons are passing through our matter state. Nira stared in disbelief. That's impossible. You're shifting the entire ship out of phase with normal spacetime. Momentarily, Ilara explained, just long enough for their attack to fail. Conventional shields absorb or deflect energy, which the harvesters have learned to counter. We simply aren't there when their weapons arrive. Fascinating, Nira whispered. Prepare gravitic disruptors, Ilara ordered. Target their propulsion systems first. The Defiant's main weapons powered up, not firing beams or projectiles, but distorting the very fabric of space-time around the harvester vessels. The effect was immediate and devastating. The closest harvester ship began to compress unevenly, its hull buckling under forces it couldn't resist or adapt to. Their shields are designed to repel or absorb energy and matter, Ilara explained to the wide-eyed council observers, but they can't shield against distortions in spacetime itself. 3 harvester vessels broke formation, attempting to flank the Defiant. They're adapting, warned the tactical officer. As expected, Ilara replied. Deploy temporal warheads, proximity detonation. Small projectiles launched from the Defiant, surrounding the approaching harvesters. When they detonated, they created bubbles of altered time, microseconds stretching into hours within their effect radius. The harvester vessels slowed to a virtual standstill, frozen in time relative to the normal universe. What have you done to them? Nira asked, astounded. Created localized temporal distortion fields. Ilara answered. They'll experience approximately 5 seconds while 5 hours pass for us. Plenty of time to deal with the remainder of their fleet. One by one, the harvester vessels were disabled or destroyed. Their advanced technology rendered useless against weapons that operated outside the conventional understanding of physics. When it was over, Ilara ordered teams to secure the time-locked vessels for research. The entire engagement had lasted less than 20 minutes. Ambassador Nira Tilani struggled to find words. This is why the Council feared human warships 5 years ago. You don't think like the rest of us. Ilara turned to face her fully. Humanity developed in isolation, Ambassador. We faced our own existential threats without the guidance, or limitations, of galactic conventions. We learned to solve problems differently. More effectively, Nira admitted, echoing Ilara's words from years ago. The harvesters represent a threat unlike anything the Council has faced in millennia, Ilara said. Conventional responses were doomed to fail against an unconventional enemy. Nira nodded slowly. The Council will need to reconsider many of its long-held principles in light of today's demonstration. They'll have time, Ilara replied. We've captured intact harvester vessels and their databases. With this intelligence, we can predict their movements, counter their technology, perhaps even determine their origin and purpose. She gazed at the tactical display, showing the disabled harvester fleet. 5 years ago, the galaxy feared human warships for being too powerful. Today, that power is the only thing standing between civilization and extinction. Ilara's expression softened slightly. We were never a threat to the Council, Ambassador, but we were always preparing to be its salvation. As the Defiant secured its prisoners and prepared to return to Council space with news of its victory, Ilara couldn't help but reflect on the irony. Humanity had been exiled for its strength, only to be called back when that strength became necessary. The galaxy had feared them, restricted them, and now, finally, needed them. And humanity, true to its nature, had answered the call.